Stained, scarred, waiting. The hooded figure from the forest stepped forward, lowering their hood at last. A woman's face, carved with cruel lines, eyes sharp as knives. She raised her hand, and the cloaked ones around us fell silent. "This is no prison," she said. "This is a forge. And you," her gaze burned into me, "will be remade." They forced me onto the platform. Chains locked around my arms and legs. The stone beneath me pulsed, as if drinking in my heartbeat. The woman placed her hand over my chest. The power inside me flared violently, fighting against her touch. Pain lanced through me, white hot, and I screamed. The chamber walls shook. The chains rattled. For a moment, I thought they would break. The woman smiled. "Yes, that's it. The door is still open." She leaned close, whispering so only I could hear. "And before this is done, you'll beg us to finish what your father started." The woman's hand pressed harder against my chest. The chains burned as though alive, pulling tighter with every heartbeat. The power inside me writhed, clawing at the edges of my veins. It wasn't just energy anymore. It was hunger. I fought to hold it back, my throat raw with screams. But the more I resisted, the stronger it grew. The chamber itself began to tremble, dust falling from the ceiling. The cloaked figures shifted uneasily. One of them whispered, "She's losing it." The woman silenced them with a glance, her eyes locked on mine. "Good. Let it consume you." A crack of light tore from my body, scorching the platform. The chains glowed red, straining against the force. The air thickened, charged, as though a storm had been trapped inside my skin. I felt myself slipping, not into unconsciousness, but into something deeper, something not me. And then, in the chaos, I heard it again. The voice. "Child, don't fight it. Open the way." My father's voice. The stone beneath me split with a deafening crack. And for one terrifying moment, I wanted to give in. The chains glowed white hot. Cracks spidered across the stone platform, light bleeding through like fire beneath glass. I felt the voice pulling me under, dragging me into its depths. Then, a sharp clang. One of the cloaked figures broke from the circle, striking the woman's arm aside. The surge of pain vanished instantly, leaving me gasping. The others shouted, weapons drawn, but the figure turned on them, blade flashing in the dim light. Two fell before they could even cry out. The woman snarled. "Traitor!" The hooded figure turned toward me, pulling back their mask just enough to reveal sharp eyes, fierce and determined. "Stay alive," they hissed. "You're worth more than they know." With a single strike, they shattered one of the glowing chains. Light erupted outward, blasting several cloaked guards across the chamber. The power inside me bucked wildly, desperate to break free. But now, for the first time, I had a choice. The woman lunged for me, fury blazing in her eyes. The traitor raised their weapon, and I felt the last chain begin to crack. The last chain snapped with a sound like thunder. Light erupted from my body, hurling the cloaked figures backward. For a heartbeat, the chamber was pure chaos. Screams, fire, and stone cracking under the weight of my release. The traitor grabbed my arm, steadying me. "Move." I stumbled off the shattered platform, my legs barely holding me. The air burned with smoke and energy, every wall alive with pulsing sigils. The woman's voice cut through it all, furious, commanding. "Don't let them escape. She belongs to Echo." Figures swarmed the chamber, blades flashing. The ally tore through them with deadly precision, each strike faster than the eye could follow. But there were too many. I raised my hand without thinking. A surge of power ripped free, blasting a path through the enemy like a storm of light. For a moment, silence followed, and every eye turned to me. The ally leaned close, their voice urgent. "You can't hold this place together much longer. The stronghold is feeding on you. If we don't leave now..." They glanced at the cracking walls. "It'll bury us both." Behind us, the woman rose from the rubble, her eyes glowing like fire. "You can run," she spat, "but Echo will never let you go." The ground split open beneath our feet, and together we leapt into the collapsing dark. The fall spat us into darkness. Stone and fire crash around us as we tumble through a narrow shaft, finally slamming into a lower passage. My lungs burned. Every breath tasted of dust and ash. The ally pulled me to my feet, their grip firm, their eyes scanning the shadows. This way. The corridor stretched ahead, trembling as the stronghold groaned above us. Walls split, torches flickered and died. Behind us, the woman's voice still echoed, furious and unyielding. You could not escape echo. Figures poured from side tunnels, blades drawn, masks gleaming. Too many, too fast. The ally shoved a dagger into my hand. Fight or die. I gripped the blade, my body trembling, not from fear, but from the power coiled inside me. It surged, begging to be unleashed. One swing, one thought, and the corridor exploded with light, hurling our attackers into the walls. The allies stared at me, stunned. You're stronger than they know. But the collapse worsened. The floor split open, swallowing whole sections of the passage. We ran, leaping over gaps, ducking falling stone. At last, a faint glow appeared ahead, moonlight, an exit. But as we sprinted for it, a towering silhouette blocked the way. Not the woman. Something else. Something Echo had been hiding. It raised its head, eyes burning like fire. The light caught his face, and my heart stopped. It was him, the stranger, but not the man I remembered. His eyes glowed the same burning red as the sigils in the walls. Chains of black metal coiled around his arms and chest, pulsing like veins. And when he spoke, his voice carried a distortion, half his own, half something else. You should have stayed in the Citadel. I stumbled back, shaking my head. No, they've done something to you. The ally drew their weapon, stepping between us. That's not him anymore. The stranger's lips twisted into a smile that wasn't his. He is mine now. The voice of the woman hissed through him. Your precious protector serves Echo. He moved with impossible speed, his blade slamming against the allies. Sparks lit the collapsing corridor as they fought. Steel on steel. I stood frozen, dagger trembling in my grip. Every instinct screamed to run. But my chest burned with another truth. It was still him, somewhere inside. The ally grunted, straining against the stranger's inhuman strength. Choose, they shouted. Either kill him or set him free. The ground split wider, stone crumbling beneath our feet. Dust choked the air. The stronghold was seconds from collapse. And I had only one chance to decide. The stranger's blade pressed against the allies, sparks flying in the suffocating dark. Every strike he made was precise, merciless, yet his eyes flickered, just for a heartbeat, as though someone else looked out from behind them. I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill him. I tightened my grip on the dagger, then hurled it aside. Instead, I stepped forward, voice breaking through the clash of steel. Fight it! You're not theirs, you're you. Remember who you are. The stranger's head snapped toward me. For the briefest second, his eyes shifted, red fading to familiar gray I knew. The woman's voice hissed through him, furious. Silence her. He lunged, his blade aimed straight for me. The ally tried to intercept, but the floor buckled beneath them, sending them crashing into the rubble. It was just me and him. I didn't move, didn't raise my hands. I just stared at him, heart pounding. You saved me once. I whispered, do it again. His blade stopped an inch from my chest, trembling, caught between two wills. His whole body shook as though chains were tearing him apart from the inside. Then he screamed. A surge of raw energy erupted from him, shattering the corridor walls. The blast hurled me backward into the collapsing stone. I saw his eyes, gray again, burning with pain. And then he vanished in the dust and fire. Silence. Not the silence of peace, but the heavy, choking stillness of ruin. I woke buried in stone and ash, every breath sharp with dust. My body screamed with pain, but I forced my hands to move, scraping at the rocks pinning me down. Each movement sent agony through my ribs. But I didn't stop, because I remembered his eyes. Gray again, human again. He was in there, and I had to reach him. The rubble shifted. light bleeding through a crack above me. I clawed my way upward, nails tearing, lungs burning. At last, I dragged myself out into the open night. The stronghold was collapsing in on itself, a black tower folding into fire and smoke. Screams echoed faintly from within, shouts of the cloaked faction still trapped inside. But I heard nothing else. No voice, no footsteps. Stranger, I shouted, my throat raw. Only the roar of falling stone answered me. The allies staggered from the ruins, blood on their brow, their weapon gone. They caught my arm, pulling me away from the crumbling wreck. "He's gone," they rasped. "We can't stay. They'll come hunting." But I couldn't look away. Somewhere in the smoke, I swore I saw a silhouette just for an instant, watching me. Then it was gone. We staggered into the forest, the burning stronghold fading behind us, smoke clawing at the stars. Every step felt heavier, as though the earth itself wanted to drag me back. The ally led the way, moving with grim urgency. "Keep your head down. If even one of them survived, they'll be tracking us already." But I barely heard them. My mind was still in the ruins, still with him. Every shadow between the trees felt like a silhouette. Every whisper of wind carried his voice. The ally glanced at me, their jaw tight. "You need to let go. He's gone." But I couldn't. I wouldn't, because when the collapse came, I saw something, a spark in his eyes, a struggle against the chains. He wasn't completely lost. Not yet. We reached an abandoned outpost at the forest edge, little more than a crumbling watchtower. The ally collapsed by the doorway, pressing a cloth to their wound. This'll have to do until sunrise. I sat against the cold wall, the night pressing heavy around me. Sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I kept replaying the moment, his scream, the surge of energy, the silhouette in the fire. Somewhere deep inside, I knew he was still out there. But what would Echo make of him, now that they claimed part of the soul? And worse, when I found him again, would he be my salvation, or the weapon they'd used to end me? Dawn came slowly, bleeding red through the trees. The watchtower's walls creaked with age, every sound making my nerves snap tighter. The allies stirred, wincing as they tightened the bandage around their arm. "We can't stay here. If the stronghold didn't kill them all, they'll be hunting already." I nodded, but my thoughts weren't on the faction. They were on him, on the question that refused to let me go. Alive, or gone. Mine, or theirs. We moved quickly through the undergrowth, keeping low, listening for pursuit. At first, the forest was silent, too silent. Then the signs began to appear, symbols carved into trees, black feathers scattered in the moss. And once, the distant sound of a horn, deep and low, carrying through the woods. The ally froze, their face hard. They're sweeping the forest. Not the same faction, someone else. I frowned. Another group? Their eyes narrowed. No, worse. We pressed on, but the air grew heavier, colder. Every branch seemed to reach for us, every shadow too dark. Then I saw it. Pinned to a tree with a black dagger was a strip of cloth. Gray, torn, stained with ash. My heart stuttered. It was his, the stranger's cloak. The ally ripped it free, eyes darting around the forest. They're leaving us messages. Either he's alive or they want you to believe he is. And somewhere in the trees, so faint I almost thought I imagined it, a laugh echoed. Not his laugh. Something colder. The forest closed and tighter with every step. The air hung thick, heavy with the weight of eyes I couldn't see. The ally kept their weapon drawn, scanning the tree leaf. They're toying with us, pushing us where they want us. I swallowed hard, gripping the tattered cloth tighter. If it truly belonged to him, then he'd been here. But if not, it was bait. Hours passed, every sound a knife to the nerves. A twig snapping, branches shifting, the rustle of something moving just out of sight. Once, I glimpsed a shape between the trees. Tall, masked, cloak as black as midnight. Gone before I could blink. "They're marking us," the ally muttered. "Not attacking, not yet. Waiting." Waiting for what? I whispered. The answer came in silence, in patience, in the way the forest seemed to bend us along a path not our own. At last night fell. We found a shallow cave and lit no fire, huddling in the dark. Every snap of branches outside sent my heart racing. But no one came. Not yet. I lay awake, the cloth clenched in my hands, the echo of that cold laugh still gnawing at me. And I realized they didn't need to attack tonight, because the waiting itself was breaking me. The first sound was a whisper, not words, just breath in the dark. Then the cave mouth collapsed in fire. Stone and dirt rained down as masked figures surged through the smoke, blades gleaming in the faint moonlight. The allies shoved me back. Run. But there was nowhere to go. Figures poured in from every side. Shadows given flesh. Their cloaks swallowed the light. Their masks smooth and featureless. No eyes, no mouths. Only silence. One lunged at me. I barely raised my arms before the power inside me exploded outward, hurling them into the wall. The cave shook, thus blinding us both. The ally fought like a cornered wolf, blade clashing against three at once. Every strike rang out sharp, but for every enemy they dropped, two more took their place. I tried to unleash another surge, but hands like iron clamped down on my arms. Cold flooded through me, chains of black light wrapping around my chest. They weren't just capturing me, they were draining me. The ally roared, breaking through the line, cutting one of the chains. Stay with me? But another figure stepped forward, taller, cloaked in silver instead of black. When they raised their hand, the entire cave fell silent. Even the air itself seemed to freeze, and their voice cut through the dark, calm and final. She belongs to us now. The silver-cloaked figure lowered their hand, and the others moved as one. Silent, precise, unstoppable, the ally fought until their blades shattered, striking until blood slicked their hands. But even they fell beneath the swarm, pinned to the ground, gasping. I screamed as the chains tightened around me, the power inside buckling against their grip. It wanted to explode, to tear them all apart. But whatever sorcery they wielded was stronger, colder. It smothered the fire in my veins until I could barely breathe. The silver figure approached, their mask catching the moonlight. Up close, I saw it wasn't metal at all. It was bone. You've been running from shadows, they said, voice echoing like two speakers out of sync. But we are not shadows. We are the ones who stood before Echo, and we will stand after. I tried to speak, but the chains cut the air from my lungs. The last thing I saw before darkness swallowed me was the ally, thrashing against their captors, shouting my name. Then nothing. When I woke, the world smelled of smoke and iron. Chains bound me upright against a pillar carved with symbols older than the ones in the stronghold. The chamber around me stretched high into darkness, lined with torches that burned with green fire. Figures stood in rows, silent and waiting. And at the far end, on a throne of stone, the silver-cloaked leader watched me with empty eyes. Welcome home, they whispered. The silence was unbearable. Every masked figure in the chamber stood perfectly still, as if carved from the same stone that caged me. The leader rose from their throne, the silver cloak dragging across the floor. They circled me slowly, their bone mask tilting as if studying prey. You think yourself chosen because Echo touched you, they said, voice layered, fractured. But Echo is nothing but a thief. What you carry does not belong to them, or to you. They stopped before me and pressed a cold hand against the pillar. The symbols flared green. Chains of light snaked tighter around my body until my breath came in shallow gasps. This is your first test. If you survive, you are ours. If you fail, they tilted their head. Then you were never meant to live. The ground split open beneath me. A pit of black water churned, bubbling, thick with shadows that writhed like living things. The chains unlocked all at once, dropping me toward it. I plunged into the icy depths. Darkness swallowed me whole. Hands, too many hands, closed around my arms and legs, dragging me deeper. Whispers flooded my skull, voices overlapping, ancient and cruel. Child of Echo, vessel of ruin, opened the gate. My chest burned. I kicked, fought, screamed, but the water swallowed every sound, and in the suffocating dark, I felt it again, That presence, not my father this time. Something older, hungrier. Give yourself to us. It breathed everywhere at once. Or drowned. The black water filled my lungs, burning like fire. The hands dragged me deeper, pulling me into a void without end. The whispers clawed at my mind, each one a hook tearing at the edges of who I was. Give yourself. Open. Be ours. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight. But the darkness was winning. And then, something inside me broke. The power I had fought so hard to cage surged free, raw and untamed. It didn't burn this time. It froze. The water around me crystallized, shattering into shards of jagged ice that tore the shadowy hands to pieces. Light, blinding, furious, burst from my chest, surging to the pit like a second heartbeat. The whispers shrieked, twisting into something closer to pain than words. The water itself recoiled, parting as though afraid. I rose through it, no longer swimming but carried upward by the force inside me. Chains of green light tried to drag me back, but they shattered on contact, dissolving into mist. I broke the surface with a scream that wasn't entirely human. The entire chamber shook, torches flaring wildly. The silver leader stood frozen, head tilted, as if listening to something only they could hear. At last, they spoke, soft, reverent. You survived. Every masked figure in the chamber dropped to one knee in perfect unison. Not to the leader. To me, the chamber rang with silence, broken only by the sound of kneeling figures pressing their foreheads to the stone. The green flames bent lower, as if bowing too, but I didn't feel like a victor. I felt hollow. The ice in my veins hadn't faded. It lingered, whispering that it wasn't done with me yet. The silver-cloaked leader stepped forward, tilting their bone mask in my direction. Their voice carried a careful balance of awe and restraint. You have proven stronger than Echo's corruption. You are no vessel, you are a forge. The masked figures murmured as one, a low hum that reverberated through the chamber. But beneath their reverence, I saw it, the slight tightening of the leader's hands. The way their bodies stiffened when the others bowed to me instead of them. A flicker of something sharp and dangerous behind their mask. They raised their hand, and the chamber fell silent again. Take her to the sanctum, they commanded. She must be prepared for what comes next. The faction rose as one, moving to obey. Chains were formed around my wrists, gentler now, almost ceremonial. As they led me away, I heard the leader's voice, low, not meant for me, but echoing nonetheless. She is powerful, but power unbound is dangerous. If she cannot be controlled, she must be ended. The allies stirred awake in chains. Their body ached, blood crusted at their temple, but the voices nearby kept them silent, alert. Two masked figures stood just beyond the iron bars of cell. One of them whispered, low and urgent, "The leader won't let her live." You saw it. She outshone them. The faction bows to her, not to the throne. The other figure shifted uneasily. She survived the trial. The shadows chose her. To strike against that would be blasphemy. The first leaned closer, voice dropping to a hiss. Blasphemy or not, the order's been given. When the sanctum opens, she dies. The allies' jaw tightened, rage flooding through the pain. They strained against the chains, but the bindings only bit deeper into their wrists. Still, their mind raced. The protagonist was alive, stronger than ever, but she was walking straight into an execution. The guards moved on, their whispers fading into the echoing corridors. The allies sagged against the wall, breath ragged, a single thought burning in their chest. I have to reach her before it's too late. The corridor narrowed as they guided me deeper underground. The air grew colder, heavier, thick with the stench of smoke and iron. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of finality. The mass procession moved in silence, their torches casting long shadows that stretched across the carved walls. The chains on my wrists were loose now, almost symbolic. It wasn't restraint anymore. It was ritual. At last, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The sanctum. Columns of black stone rose like teeth, each etched with shifting symbols that pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. At the center, a circle of fire burned green and blue, alive, writhing like a living thing. The heat rolled against my skin, but instead of burning, it seemed to seep into me. The silver-cloaked leaders stood at the far side, their masks gleaming in the light. They raised their hands, and the others fanned out, forming a circle around the fire. This is where all vessels are tested. They said, voice carrying through the chamber. Some are purified, some are consumed, and some, their head tilted ever so slightly, are ended. I froze, the weight of their words chilling me more than the fire's heat. But the masked figures around me didn't flinch. They bowed as one. The leader's voice softened, almost tender. Step forward, child of Echo, and let the sanctum decide if you're worthy or a mistake. The flames surged higher, waiting. The heat licked at my skin as I stepped into the circle. The green-blue fire rose to greet me, wrapping around my body like a serpent. Yet it did not burn. It pulled. The chamber dissolved. The masked figures, the stone, the leader, all gone. I stood in a vast black void. The flames had followed me, forming a crown of fire above my head, flickering with whispers. You carry the fracture. The voices hissed, layered and overlapping. 2 paths, 2 selves. Only one can remain. A shape emerged from the darkness. At first I thought it was another shadow, but then I froze. It was me, my reflection, but twisted, eyes glowing with pale green fire, veins black as ink. Her smile stretched too wide. I am the part you buried, she said, voice smooth, cruel. The hunger, the rage, the will to destroy. My fists clenched. You're not me. She tilted her head. I am you, the only version strong enough to survive. They will never follow the broken thing you cling to. But me? They'll kneel forever. The flames above roared, splitting into 2 streams, one flowing toward her, one toward me. The void trembled as if demanding a choice. The shadow me raised her hand, green fire swirling into a blade. If you want to live, prove you're stronger than yourself. The crown of fire descended, searing into my skull. And suddenly, the void rang with the sound of 2 heartbeats, mine and hers. The void pulsed like a living lung. My shadow self smiled with my mouth and not my heart. Green fire coiling around her like a crown. She lunged first. Swift, cruel, a blade of flame slicing the dark. I met her with everything I had. Fists, memory, the desperate refusal to become her. Blows landed with the force of storms. Every strike echoed not just in the void, but in my bones. She whispered every doubt I'd ever had. Your father's failures, the faces of those I couldn't save, the times I hid and pretended to be small. Each word was a knife. Each knife opened wounds that bled heat. But with each cut I remembered something steadier. The stranger's gray eyes, the ally's rough hands, the way someone once reached for me and risked everything. I fought with those memories like armor. The shadow self laughed and birthed mirrors in the ground. Endless versions of me, each one twisted into cruelty. They swarmed, claws of shadow tearing at my limbs. I slammed through them, heart hammering, until only the 2 of us remained. She raised her blade high, the fire within it screaming for release. I felt the same hunger answering beneath my ribs, a dark insistence that everything should burn. No, I breathed. If I become you, there's nothing left to save. With that, I did something I hadn't known I could do. I reached not for power, but for mercy. I let the light in me curl around her blade like a hand, and instead of ripping her apart, I wrapped the fire in memory, the lullabies, the small kindnesses my father taught me, the stranger's last look of human gray. The blade faltered. The shadow self's face flickered between hunger and something like grief. For a heartbeat, we were the same child again. Then the void cracked. The crown of fire shattered into 1,000 warm shards that rained down and healed the jagged wounds in chamber. The shadow self dissolved not in defeat, but in resignation. No triumphant scream, only the soft admission that she had wanted to survive at any cost. When the darkness fell away, I stood alone in the sanctum, breathless, the green-blue flames guttering into embers that settled like dust around my feet. Far away, beyond the void, a bell tolled, an alarm from the real world. It echoed through the sanctum like a cracked voice. Somewhere else in the winding corridors, Iron groaned. A cell door shuttered. Locks clicked and fell away. The allies seized a moment. With blood-slicked fingers, they pried away at the rusted chain, sliding free as the compound convulsed. They moved like a shadow through chaos, silent, desperate, cutting throats when they had to, grabbing weapons, dragging other prisoners into the sudden flood of escape. By the time the embers in the sanctum cooled, the ally had fought their way into the outer ring of the compound. They paused only once, breath ragged, to listen for my voice, any sign that I had returned from the void. Hearing nothing, they forced a brittle, furious smile and ran toward the sanctum doors, ready to burst in and pull me out by force if they had to. The sanctuary's outer gates, already crumbling from the ritual's shockwaves, groaned open like a wounded animal. The allies slipped through the gap, drawing breath of the cold night air. They didn't know if I had survived. They only knew one thing with brutal clarity. They would not leave me behind. When the ally reached the sanctum entrance, torches guttering in the aftermath of the trial, they found the circle of fire cold and the chamber strewn with cracked stone. No bodies lay where the shadow self had stood. The leader's throne was empty, the masked figures scattered and disoriented, some kneeling as if in prayer, others staring blankly at the floor. The allies' shout cracked the silence, raw, furious, pleading. "My name," they demanded, voice echoing off the black stone. For a moment there was no answer. Then, from the inner darkness, a single step echoed, soft, hesitant. I emerged, clothes singed, eyes hollow but steady. The sanctum's air seemed to breathe in through me and out again. The ally ran forward, dropping to their knees. "You alive?" they choked. I looked at them. I looked at the ruined chamber, at the embers, at the empty throne. "I am," I said, and the words sounded like a promise and a warning. Behind us, somewhere in the compound, a new sound began to rise, a low, resonant hum, like the distant turning of a colossal key. It vibrated through the stones and into our bones, and with it came a certainty that nothing about what we become would ever be the same. The hum deepened, rolling through the sanctum like thunder trapped underground. Dust trickled from the ceiling. The cracked pillars vibrated, their glowing symbols bleeding into one another as if waking from a long sleep. The ally turned toward me, panic flashing across their face. "What is that?" I shook my head, though the answer clawed at the back of my mind. The sound wasn't coming from above. It was coming from below. The floor beneath the sanctum circle split open, the stone folding back like the petals of a grotesque flower. From the chasm rose a structure older than the compound, older than the faction itself. A vast black door, engraved with sigils that writhed and shifted as though alive. The masked figures who had survived the trial fell to their knees, some sobbing, some chanting in low, broken voices. One tore their mask away and pressed their face to the floor, whispering, "It awakens! The sealed one awakens!" The silver leader appeared at the edge of the fissure, their cloak torn, mask askew. For the first time, I saw their eyes through the crack in the bone, wide, desperate, afraid. This wasn't supposed to happen, they rasped. She wasn't supposed to open it. The ground shuddered again. The door began to turn, the sound like mountains grinding against each other. My chest tightened. The trial hadn't just tested me. It had been the key. The ally gripped my arm. "Tell me we're running," they said, voice taut with terror. But I couldn't move, because as the door cracked open, a wind colder than death itself poured out, and from the darkness beyond came a sound. Not a growl, not a whisper, something far worse. A laugh. The laugh rippled through the sanctum, jagged and wrong, echoing in places the ear couldn't reach. It wasn't just sound. It was memory, nightmare, hunger all at once. The masked figures convulsed, clutching their heads, blood dripping from beneath their bone masks. Some screamed. Others tore at their own flesh, as if trying to silence the noise inside their skulls. The silver leader stumbled backward, their voice breaking. No, it was bound, buried beyond reach. This cannot. The rest of their words were drowned out by the shriek of the door, grinding fully open. A light bled through the crack, but not a pure light. It was oily, shifting colors no human eye should see, like staring into madness itself. And then it stepped forward. At first, all I saw was shadow, but as it took shape, detail sharpened. A towering figure with no face, only a jagged grin carved into void where features should be. Its limbs bent at angles that defied bone, moving like both smoke and flesh. Its skin wasn't skin at all. It was made of countless whispering mouths, each one speaking fragments of lives long devoured. The ally froze beside me, their breath hitching. What the hell did you open? I couldn't answer. My chest was heavy with the truth I didn't want to admit. It wasn't me that had opened the door. It was the other me, the shadow self, the fracture I thought I'd overcome. She had whispered to the lock. She had turned the key. The creature's grin widened as if it recognized me. Every torch in the sanctum extinguished, leaving only its oily glow. And then it spoke, in a voice that was both mine and not mine. Finally, the sanctum exploded into chaos. The silver leader raised their hands, shouting an incantation older than the walls themselves. Symbols on the pillars blazed alive, shooting streams of green fire toward the towering thing. The remaining masked figures joined in, voices rising in frantic chants, their bodies trembling with the force of the spell. Chains of light surged from the stone, wrapping around the creature's limbs, its torso, its grin. For a moment, the sanctum blazed with the glow of their desperate will. The air shook, the ground cracked. The entity didn't resist at first. It let them bind it. It let them believe. Then it laughed again. The chains shattered like glass, exploding into shards that ripped through the chanting figures. Half the faction dropped in a heartbeat, their voices cut short by blood and silence. The green fire recoiled, sucked into the creature's frame as it devoured. The silver leader stumbled back, mask slipping fully away to reveal their pale, hollowed face. This is not the vessel, they gasped. It's the thing the vessel was meant to keep sealed. The creature bent its head toward me, the carved grin splitting wider, its mouths whisper my name in endless overlapping voices. The ally pulled me back, blade in hand, though we both knew steel was useless against something like this. Tell me we're not fighting that, they whispered. The entity tilted, almost curious, and then it stepped forward. Every torch in the sanctum guttered out, plunging the chamber into a darkness that was alive. The darkness pressed in thick as tar, yet the creature glowed faintly, its grin the only shape in the void. It bent low, lowering its faceless head until it was inches from mine. 1,000 mouths whispered in unison. My name, over and over, twisted, stretched. The ally gripped my arm. Don't listen, don't let it in. But it was already inside. Images flooded my skull, flashes of my childhood. The day I first felt the fracture stir, the moment the faction's trial crowned me with fire. Each memory bent, cracked, reshaped, until I saw myself as the thing saw me. Not a savior, not a fighter, but a door. You were made for this. It hissed, though no mouth moved. You thought you killed her, but she opened me. The shadow self, the one I'd face in the void. I had won, or thought I had, but in surrendering her, in sparing her, I had left the lock unguarded. The entity leaned closer, the oily light seeping into my skin, curling in my veins. You are my vessel, it crooned, each word vibrating through bone. I am what grows in your silence. I am the end you carry. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. The whispers didn't feel foreign anymore. They felt like my own thoughts, only louder, stronger, closer. The allies stepped between us, blades shaking in their grip. Then you'll have to kill me first, they spat. The grin widened. Gladly. The grin split wider, and the oily glow surged outward like a tide. The ally barely had time to raise their blade before the shadow poured over them, swallowing steel and skin alike. They screamed, raw, guttural, but not in pain, in defiance. The blade flared as if answering their will, slicing through the darkness. For a heartbeat, they carved a path of light, holding the entity back. But the effort cost them. The shadows lashed, flinging them across the chamber. Their bodies struck stone with a sickening crack. I cried out, but the sound drowned beneath the roar of the sanctum itself. The pillars were splitting, their glowing sigils unraveling into streams of fire that spiraled upward, tearing cracks in the ceiling. The floor buckled under my feet, Chunks of stone falling into the chasm where the black door still gaped wide. The entity stepped through the storm, its countless mouths laughing, whispering, calling. Run, vessel. Run, and I will follow. There is no world where you can hide from yourself. The allies stirred weakly, blood staining their lips, but their eyes burned with the same defiance as before. Go, they rasped. Get out live. The ground lurched violently. Walls caved inward. The sanctum was dying, and still, the grin moved closer. The sanctum roared like a wounded beast. Stone splitting, fire pouring from the cracks. Chunks of the ceiling rained down, smashing into the circle where I had once stood. The black door yawned wider, pulling air and light into its endless maw. I staggered to my feet, dragging the ally up by sheer will. Their weight nearly dropped me, but I refused to let go. Not now. Not after everything. The entity's laughter slithered through the ruin. It didn't chase. It didn't need to. Every step we took, the shadows followed, filling the cracks, pouring through collapsing walls like smoke with teeth. The ally coughed blood but forced their voice steady. Left passage, there's a stairwell. I hauled them toward it. The stairs groaned, half dissolved by the quake, but they held as we stumbled upward. Behind us, the chamber gave one final shudder, then collapsed entirely, swallowed by the black door's pull. For an instant, I thought the whole compound would vanish into that abyss. But the sanctum sealed itself with a deafening slam. Cutting off the light, the laughter for now, we burst into the upper halls, where mass survivors screamed and fled. Flames spread along the ceilings, smoke choking the corridors. The allies stumbled, nearly falling again. Keep moving. I shouted, voice ragged. I didn't know if I was begging them or myself. At last, daylight burned through the cracks ahead. We crashed through a shattered archway into the night air, collapsing against the cold earth. The compound behind us groaned, sagged, and then imploded into itself, vanishing in a thunderous cloud of dust and fire. Silence followed. The kind of silence that feels wrong, like the world itself is holding its breath.